Going for brunch. Good morning. This morning we're going to Bloomfield for brunch. It's this place we went a couple years ago, like pre-COVID. I remember going for my mom or for Mother's Day, and it was so good. So I'm really excited. And then we also ordered it during COVID. They were making, for Father's Day actually, they were making, or Mother's Day again. I think my mom loves this place actually. They were making these take-home meals, like takeout, but like it was a tasting menu thing. Anyway, the dishes just look so good, so I'm really excited. We're going for brunch for my dad's birthday because it's Halloween tomorrow. He's a Halloween baby. Yeah, this weekend I've been going out a little bit. I think I might go out tonight. We shall see. It's like rough because I have an assignment due on Monday, which is tomorrow, that I haven't started. So I've just been like this entire weekend stressed about that. So I haven't been wanting to go out much. So when I get back from brunch, I'm just gonna grind it out. It's gonna be brutal, but I'm just gonna get it done so that I can enjoy the rest of Halloween weekend and have a good time. But yeah, I'm really excited. Also, tonight I'm going out on a surprise date. I don't know where we're going, which I'm really excited about. I feel like those are the best types of dates when you don't really know where you're going. I'll see you. Let's go.
Nah, don't take it easy. You are every man's dream. Find this woman that I've seen. Take your time down the line. Beat the vibes, ain't no crime. I just wanna find you, baby. Spread a little distance tonight. Help me get the mojo back, honey. We both know I've been stuck. I just wanna find you, baby. Spread a little distance tonight.
I'm so exhausted and like coming off being sick again, but I'm so excited because I'm off to Baba Cool. It's in Old Port, Mediterranean restaurant. I haven't been yet, and I feel like it's everyone's favorite. So many people just love it, so I'm so excited. It's currently Montréal à table, so they have like a set menu. It's like a 4-course meal or something, so I'll get to try a bunch of stuff, and I'm really excited. I'm going with Cam, who I haven't seen in a couple months, so I'm really excited. A new top from Meow and just some Levi's. Going to Parma Cafe. First time. They have like an eggplant cheese one that I'm dying to try. I'm going with Emily, Julia. Let's go. Good morning. I'm off to Sammy Soup Dumplings with Pippa. Last year we were obsessed. Well, I mean, I still kind of am, but like much less. Last year I went to get dumplings every single week, at least once a week. It was our hangover food. We would always get dumplings, and I haven't gotten dumplings since last semester, I think. It's been so long, so I'm so excited. I've also never been to Sammy Soup, which apparently is like the best dumplings in Montreal. Everyone raves about them, so I'm really excited to go try. Afterwards, I'm gonna go to Charlotte's and study for a bit, and then I just have a couple errands to run around the city, so I'm just gonna get all that done. It's gonna be productive but also fun. Sunday, which is my favorite mix, my ideal Sunday, is getting work done but also having some fun and like going out and doing things I wouldn't necessarily do during the week, although I do eat out a lot recently. It's kind of like the only fun thing I do. I'm kind of in a state of just feeling tired and not really wanting to do much, so I'm kind of forcing myself to still have outings because otherwise it gets really depressive. Starting the week on the right foot. Sunday for me is like the beginning of the week. Let's go.
Yours are like actually juicy.
I know. Wait, I don't know how to do it.
Just squish it.
early this morning, showered, and Lola's coming to pick me up in 10 minutes. Oh shoot, so I need to hurry. We're gonna go to Blanket Space, which is the space that you can rent out to like do creative stuff, shoots. Yeah, we're gonna shoot for Biss and Broke Vintage. Then I'm also gonna shoot my Aritzia campaign for this month. I'm just doing my Speedy makeup. My liner, which I always get questions about, is the ColourPop Lippy Pencil in Alari. I actually tried to find this online to order more. I think they stopped selling it or they changed the name. I found one that's really similar and I'll link it down below. I wear it probably every single day. I tried this new serum this morning. It's an oil serum hybrid. It smells a bit weird, but making me shiny. My chin, forehead. I am dry all the time. I have like a pretty good skincare routine down. I'll share it with you at some point. My mascara is the Charlotte Tilbury Push-Up Lashes. It's the best mascara I've ever used. Okay, it actually takes me so long to do my mascara. Done. And then I've been using this gloss on my lips, this Clarins Natural Lip Perfector blush. Can't see what I'm doing. I always go just under my eyes and then up on my cheekbone. Don't worry, I will blend it in and it won't look as crazy. Good morning.
Were you,
Oh gosh, okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's the daily makeup. Hasn't changed in years.
Oh, you look so pretty.
Good evening. I have been studying all week. It's finals week. I have my last final on Monday or Saturday night, and I've just been studying pretty much all day, so I need a break. So I'm going to grab a drink with Sadie at Club Pelicano. It looks really nice and fun. Just gonna go grab a drink, relax a bit, and then get a good night's sleep and back to the grind tomorrow. I just can't wait for my final to be over. But for now, I think I just need to chill a bit. I haven't really been out at all this whole week because I've been getting all my final projects, essays in. I've been extremely last minute, and I've also been trying to get some work done, but that's been kind of unsuccessful. I've been struggling at doing both YouTube and school, so YouTube has taken the back burner for a little while. I'm excited for the holidays. I'm going to see my grandparents once again in the States. Probably gonna stop by Chicago. I'm not wearing this, by the way. I'm wearing like a cute top, but it's so freaking cold out. Finished school as promised. I'm just gonna do an overview of the books I read this semester. I read a lot of really great books. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is a post-apocalyptic novel about a father and his son walking through the American landscape, trying to survive on anything and everything they find while steering clear of other humans because humanity has been lost for the most part. Content warning would be like there's a lot of very intense stuff that goes down. I'm sure you can imagine people will do anything they can can to survive, and that involves harming others, which is hard to read. Cormac McCarthy uses a lot of mechanical jargon, esoteric and arcane language that's just kind of hard to understand. Behind his use of all these words is a mission of his own to immortalize these words by writing them down, by keeping them in the dialogue, if that makes sense. We talked about how in the apocalypse, once things disappear, if we stop also alluding to them and naming them, then they are lost forever. Although this is about things ending, it's also hopeful. Every detail matters, which I really enjoy, actually, minimalist literature. On that same theme, we read Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead, which I mentioned already. We talked about the genre turn, genre anxiety in relation to this novel, which I feel like really changed my view and made me appreciate this book a lot more. There's been this shift with literary authors, this shift towards genre, so very renowned literary authors have been indulging in genre writing, and that has sparked some resistance from people that don't think that genre deserves to be recognized at the same level as literary fiction. So literary fiction is anything that's unpredictable. It doesn't really fit into any category or genre. So Colson Whitehead kind of takes this problem head on, and although he does choose to write about genre, he does want to establish himself as literary. The fact that he writes such dense, rich, complex prose, but he's writing about a subject, zombies, that is very lowbrow, reflects his genre anxiety, his fear that because he's writing about something that is boring because zombies are scary and that's pretty much it, he uses complex language to render the story so that he can be considered to be part of like highbrow literature. I'm probably making this sound a lot more complex than it is. I feel kind of brain dead. And then another way that he like places himself above genre fiction is he criticizes mainstream stuff, sitcoms. He refuses to name popular items, but the story is basically about Mark Spitz, this guy surviving the apocalypse, killing stragglers and skells, working to rebuild New York City to make it habitable again. As most modern books are, Zone 1 is about consumerism, capitalism, how those things subsist after the apocalypse. There's actually a quote by Frederick Jameson, I think. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism, I think is the quote, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, and that's kind of reflective of a lot of the books we read this semester. So it's interesting to read this post-apocalyptic world where sponsors are the only providers of items to people. You can't loot. You're still living under this kind of big brother government. There's elements from all types of genres in here: romance, western, horror with the zombies, financial horror, which is very niche. It's one of those books that I didn't enjoy reading that much, but when I got to the end, it made it worth it. So do with that what you will. Then we read Homegoing by Gyasi. I really liked this book when we started off. It's really well written. It's a multi-generational family saga. It starts with a genealogical tree, I can't say that properly, and every chapter jumps down and it switches in between both sides of the family because it starts with two sisters separated at birth and just follows the history of slavery through both families, with one that was on, I guess, the privileged side in terms of being complicit to the slave trading that happened in Africa, and then the other side being enslaved. And I think it's such a great book. It's just a very easy read. You learn a lot because Gyasi was very committed to making her book one that was educational. The only thing is that in class we talked about how this book is very catered to like the school setting and very pedagogical, and that's the reason why she got such a huge advance. Just something you notice when you're told to notice it. So it's obviously something that was in the back of my mind. It is interesting to study kind of the inner workings of the publishing world. I would still recommend this. I think it's great. Every chapter is like 30 pages and it takes you into the world of the child of the last person you read. I'm very much a fan of like switching perspectives from chapter to chapter, which brings me to the next book we read, which is There by Tommy Orange. Amazing. This is also multi-protagonist fiction. Every chapter is a different character, but what's different with this one is it's not genealogical novel. I can't say that word, sorry. It goes back and forth in time. He uses prolepsis a lot, which are flash forwards, which we talked a lot about actually, because this book follows a bunch of Native Americans living in Oakland in California. It starts off with the prologue that talks about Thanksgiving, how it came to be, and how it's really a celebration of a massacre, and then it goes on to start off the story with the ending, or at least a taste of the ending, which is this guy procuring a gun and planning to rob a powwow with his friends. And then it goes back in time and we follow the whole story with a couple back and forths in time time, so it's kind of doomed from the start. We talked about how, what's her name, Betty Bloom, talks about how prolepsis is a literary technique that speaks to structural inequality because it represents how you're kind of doomed from the start because of your race or your ethnicity. By jumping to the future and showing happy times, you get the reader to kind of hope for a better future, although it feels foreclosed from the start. I think the Bloom woman then spoke about how it relates to American politics, gun control, and just how everyone is like, that'll never happen to me. And Tommy Orange uses it here to make a comment on how Indigenous people have been trying to establish themselves as a contemporary people, but they keep kind of being pulled back in time by things that happen. That's like really not well said. Tommy Orange is trying to not tell like this ahistorical story, but show how history lands in the present, and in some ways how history repeats itself, which can also be related to homegoing, where there's a lot of repetition throughout the years, lots of echoes. I liked also how every chapter the point of view changes. One chapter might be told in the first person, and then the second person kind of reflects the state of mind of the person you're reading. I loved this book. Then we read Severance by Ling Ma, the first burnout book we read, which is a genre my teacher presented to us. I don't think it's like a recognized genre, but it's definitely relevant to 21st century literature. Something that stands out about this novel is she's not afraid to name brand names. She's not afraid to talk about the internet, or maybe she is a little bit, but that's a debate for another time. Once again, post-apocalypse. It's crazy that this was written in 2018 because it's like exactly what happened with COVID-19. Anyway, it's so crazy to read. Shen fever arrives. People get sick. When they get fevered, they start repeating their gestures over and over again, and then they just like slowly like deteriorate and get sick. It's pretty graphic actually. The story goes back and forth between the present and the past, and in the past, you know, she works at this book publishing firm in the Bible section. She goes to China sometimes to overlook the factory, so it's definitely showing us the process of how books are made and how commodified books have become. We talked a lot about symbolic capital and how books have lost their symbolic capital. Symbolic capital is like the worth that you attribute to a work of art, and it's kind of agreed on by people, and it exists because people believe in it, not so much because it has this tangible value. And so this whole book is kind of a comment on that, as it explores how books are made in factories that could be making anything else. A lot of literary works are afraid to talk about the internet because it either could date their book or they feel like it's not literary enough, but she starts off the novel talking about Google and all that. What stands out is when the pandemic hits, she continues going to work. She gets paid this huge amount to stay at the office, and she continues going to work even when there's no one left. So it's definitely a commentary on that, and that brings me to the kind of burnout novel that I mentioned, where there's a good chunk of novels that explore a woman protagonist who is experiencing detachment from her job, low affect, so she seems to feel nothing, which is not really what you would expect from someone who's literally experiencing the end of the world. And it's reflected in like every single aspect of her life, from her work to her romantic relationships. All relationships are romanceless, often intergenerational. Young girls having relationships with older guys, very matter-of-fact intercourse. There's like no emotion really. They're also not really invested in their jobs. They have jobs that don't pay well, that they don't really care about or like that much. They're isolated. They don't have many female friendships, and if they do, they're contentious. It's like the frenemy relationship. And then there's also the atmosphere of catastrophe that is juxtaposed with banal daily activities and daily life. So that's kind of the burnout novel definition that our teacher gave us, and this book obviously fits right in. And then there's also the pink cover, which a lot of the burnout genre novels have, which brings me to the last book we read, My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Also pink, also burnout. I read this summer. I felt very ambivalent about reading it again. One part of me was like, ugh, I want to read something new because I don't read that much already. And then the other part of me was like, but I want to understand this book better, because at first read, I didn't really understand the point of what I had just read. I felt like it was just about this girl complaining about her life and then taking a bunch of pills. And I obviously knew there was more to it, especially the last chapter and the last page. Like, it made me feel some type of way, but I couldn't really put my finger on why. This is basically the story of an unnamed protagonist, is a strong word to describe this girl, but who's wealthy, she's pretty, she kind of has everything going for her, but she has a lot of trauma trauma from her past relationships, both with men, with her mother and father, who are both deceased, which is another kind of common part of the burnout novel. The women are often orphaned, either literally or kind of figuratively. Same thing with Candace, both her parents are dead, and she basically wants to sleep away her traumas, be born a new person again, and she decides to do that by taking an excruciatingly huge amount of pills and sleeping. And we talked about this in class about how it's really impressive that Ottessa Moshfegh was able to render such a good book about a woman who's sleeping half the time, because usually things happen in monologue when you're writing about something, but here she has to talk about someone who's literally asleep 24/7. And she has this frenemy who's her best friend, Riva, who kind of represents everything that she hates. She's relatable, but she's also detestable. Ottessa Moshfegh was very interested in the question of the novel as art and art as commodities, kind of like in Severance a little bit, just in how she talks about modern art and the fact that the protagonist works at an art gallery and criticizes everyone and everything and seems to really disdain people that study art, that make art, and just the art world in general. I think that reading it a second time allowed me to like it a lot more. And there's a lot of use of metafiction, which is also recurring in all these books that we read. She reads out an article from the New Yorker in here, Riva reads it, and it's very much a commentary on literary fiction's obsession with satisfying conclusions, but it's riddled with stereotypes. So that's kind of Ottessa Moshfegh's way of saying, you know, don't fall for the things aren't always as they seem. I really recommend reading this. It's also a super easy read. Let me know if any of you have read any of these. My favorite was There, and then Mayor of Rest, Severance, Homegoing, The Road, Zone 1. Oh my gosh, I'm missing. We also read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, which I just gave my mom because she wants to read it, by Ocean Vuong. Actually incredible. It's about Little Dog, which is the nickname his grandmother gives him. A Vietnamese American immigrant, and it's an epistolary novel. Basically, it's a letter to his mother, who does not speak English, in English, so that's a whole thing. But it's extremely poetic. Oh, he just writes beautifully. He talks about being queer growing up in Hartford. He speaks about the hardships that they went through. We talked about this critic, Miller, I forget his first name, who wrote about Call Me By Your Name, and he talks about liberal tolerance, about how only when we avert our eyes from queer sex can we accept it, or from male sex actually. So we questioned whether On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous does that, and in contrast to Call Me By Your Name, Ocean Vuong really just shares the entirety of the experience, shows the beauty of it, but doesn't hide the not so great parts of it. Miller criticizes how making the movie beautiful brings us to believe it's a masterpiece, and Vuong kind of flips that on its head by creating probably the most beautiful work of writing I've ever read, and not shielding the reader from anything that might not be so pretty to describe. That was amazing. It's one of those books that's so raw and it hits you right in the heart. So yeah, those are all the books I read this semester. I'm about to put on this Dead Cool Roll-On number 05 fragrance oil. Oh my gosh, Dead Cool has the best scents. I have their little perfume pack and I keep it in my bag and I always spray myself, and I love putting their oil on. It's soothing. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.